Rev up your engines for the Mid-Michigan Biker Podcast with Big E. Proudly sponsored by Christensen Law, where bikers helping engine bikers is more than just a motto. It's our commitment to the biker community. Be sure to tune in and listen to the latest news and biker buzz. And for all your personal injury needs, be sure to contact the Christensen Law team at 248-900-9000. What's up, bikers? It's Big E, and you're listening to the Mid-Michigan Biker Podcast. We're talking all things bikes, the freedom of the road, and the brotherhood that makes this lifestyle what it is. From killer tips to wild stories from the highway, we've got it all right here. Life is short, bikers, so let's get after it. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. So this week we're going to get a little creative. We have a special guest via phone. He's been on the podcast a few times, Jeremy Knox. How's it going, Jeremy?
Hey, good, Big E. How are you?
I'm good. So we've talked the insurance thing a few times, and it's all good evergreen information. You can go back and listen to those podcasts. But something, Jeremy, it was Jeremy's idea. I'm going to say that. And I'm seeing more and more of this, so it's not totally off topic. Seeing more and more people, including myself, bringing their dog with them on rides and stuff. So we got a little creative. Jeremy came up with a pretty good topic.
Yep. Today we're not talking about bikes. We're talking about dogs.
Right. I mean, like I said, I take my dog around once in a while. We have a few local guys that bring their dogs. Granted, they're probably not going to bite you, but I mean, they could. Any dog is capable of it. Right?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. A lot of good dogs, unfortunately do bite people because they think what they're doing is protecting the owner. Dogs obviously are not developed like humans and don't think things through. And so they act on instinct because, let's be honest, dogs are essentially wolves. And, sometimes they act out, in ways that they were born to do, and sometimes that is a protective type of thing, and sometimes there are obviously, like people, there are some dogs that just aren't good, and they do bite people, and I see a lot of dog bites, and we handle dog bite cases at Christensen Law, and so I love dogs. I'll just start off by saying that dogs, I always say, are humans' greatest invention. I have dogs, and if I could, I would have a lot of dogs, but it's just I'm not really set up to do that. So I don't have any issues with dogs, and dog bite cases, depending on the severity of them, sometimes can result in things like fines, criminal charges. And unfortunately, sometimes the dog does have to be euthanized and put down because it's such a vicious attack. So obviously, preventing the dog bite ideally would be the best way to handle dog bites, but that doesn't always happen. So what happens is when you have a dog bite, the owner is responsible. So I'll start off with a true or false that Michigan law has a one dog bite rule, Big E. Is that true or false?
I'm going to go with true.
That is actually false.
Oh,
So in Michigan, it's a strict liability situation, which means there's really no defense for the owner of a dog with a dog bite. There are some factors that could defend a dog bite, and we can get into those, but essentially it's a strict liability situation. So if your dog bites somebody and you're the owner of that dog, you're responsible. That's and pretty much end of story.
end of story.
In Michigan. Yep. So there are some mitigating and some things and defenses that are used, and that's the first one is really provocation. So if someone goes up to a dog and provokes it, gets in its face, hits it with a stick, it shakes the fence, things like that, and the dog bites, then you can use that defense if you're the owner.
Right.
The other one is a trespasser. So scenarios, obvious scenarios are delivery man walking up to your house, gets bit by a dog. That delivery man is supposed to be there. You've essentially invited that delivery man to deliver packages at your home. And unfortunately, the dog bit the delivery man. So that's pretty straightforward. The other scenario is someone breaks into your house and the dog bites them. That trespasser really doesn't have any rights to not get bit. So, those are the two kind of scenarios that you kind of could use as examples as to a trespasser and somebody that's lawfully on someone's property. So provocation is a defense, and being a trespasser is also a defense to a dog owner. But after that, there really isn't any defenses to it. So just keep in mind, if you have a dog and it bites somebody, you're pretty much on the hook.
Okay.
And so as a homeowner, you want to make sure that you have insurance that covers things like that, because unfortunately dogs do bite. And when they do, you don't want to be personally sued and have that type of exposure.
Right. Well, that's pretty good info right there. Now, would that cover you if you had your dog on your bike and you were somewhere else, not at home?
So that's a great question, and that's an insurance question. That's not a legal question.
You can't help me with that.
Yeah, no, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's not
something to ask
legal question. So insurances, some cover only on the premises. So at your house, at your apartment, on your own property. Some insurances won't cover just for that reason, is because a lot of people do travel with their dogs. And so because of that, you have to check your insurance policy. A lot of insurances also don't cover certain types of dogs. Like pit bulls are very often excluded from an insurance policy, because pit bulls, whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. Maybe pit bulls need a better marketing team.
I think they need a better attorney.
Yeah, but exactly. They need a better advocate. But pit bulls, unfortunately, are kind of the, when people think of like a vicious dog, they often think of a pit bull, because they are. There's a lot of video of pit bulls, and what makes pit bull a dangerous dog, and at least in my opinion, and kind of in my experience, is they are just bad, tough dogs. And once they get a hold of you and they shake you, that it's over. It's not, Chihuahuas can bite and cause damage too, but you can punt a Chihuahua.
Right.
You can't punt a pit bull. You're in trouble. So that's the difference, really. But I will say, dog breed wise, one of the dogs that I see a lot of, I'm not sure why, but German Shepherds tend to bite a lot. And they're great dogs. They're very smart dogs, and obviously police use them. But for some reason, they get this protective of their family, so they feel like their family's, being, not attacked, but just if they feel there's danger, they will bite.
Right.
And I find for whatever reason, we see a lot of German Shepherds and Chihuahuas too, because Chihuahuas they're just tough little dogs. And, obviously the damages aren't significant with a Chihuahua bite, as opposed to like a German Shepherd or even a pit bull. But for just certain breeds, for some reason, just tend to bite more. And I think it's just a protective instinct that certain dogs have. So that's, essentially it. But you want to make sure that on your insurance policy, on your homeowner's policy, that it does cover off-premises injuries. Now, I've had cases where the dog got out the door, got 2 blocks down the road, bit somebody, and the insurance didn't cover it. So the person had to go get their own attorney and go out of pocket to defend the case. And that can be expensive because that attorney is going to charge hourly rates, and it can be as high as $800 an hour, sometimes $900. Michigan has held $900 an hour is reasonable for an attorney. So some attorneys will charge that, and they're going to want a retainer. So they're going to want $5,000 or $6,000 retainer just to get started. And, there's a lot of discovery in a dog bite case. There's, things like medical records and depositions and interrogatories, which are written questions, and requests for production of documents, which is, formal requests for records. They're going to want to know if that dog's ever bit before. Not that, it's that relevant, but it's going to definitely go to culpability of the owner. And so there's just a lot of things that go into it that, you could spend a year in litigation. So you can imagine what the cost of that would be if you didn't have insurance.
Wow.
And then also, let's talk about the damages that flow from a dog bite. When you think of a dog bite, what's the first thing you think of is just the actual injury itself, the bite. Okay. But what about the things like emotional trauma, like PTSD, having a fear of dogs after this, not being able to sleep, nightmares? I mean, if you have we've had some serious dog bite cases. I mean, I could tell you some horror stories and show you some pictures. It's just unbelievable what some of these dogs can do. I mean, ripping hair out of someone's scalp, ripping scalp off of their skull, really just grotesque, fingers gone, big bites down to the bone, and it just looks like hamburger. I mean, they're horrible. So from an attorney injury and a personal injury attorney perspective, I mean, I blow those pictures up and show them to a jury. I mean, they're giving me money. And and so you have that damage, and then you also have, anything that flows from it. So someone misses work. Let's say that they're a construction worker and, the dog ate their hand. Well, they're not working for a while until that hand heals, if ever again.
Right.
So you can imagine just all the damage that flow from it. So, wage loss, and then out of pocket. Let's say they have a high deductible on their medical insurance and they got to go $10,000 out of pocket. And then the medical bills are, that are paid, they're going to want to lean into any recovery. So, let's say they have some type of a surgery where they have to reattach a tendon or do plastic surgery to get rid of a scar on a face. That could be $20,000, $30,000 that the insurance company that paid for that is going to want to get paid back. So,
Dang.
If you're going to have a dog, you better make sure that you can get insurance coverage, because if you have insurance coverage, you're going to be covered up to, at least $100,000, because most homeowners carry that type of liability. And then if it's an off-premises dog bite, you want to make sure that insurance covers the off-premises dog bite. So if you're walking around with your dog off-site, off your premises, off your, your land, you want to make sure that that's covered also. and you want to make sure, the type of dog you have is covered. So you just when you get your policy, you tell the insurance agent or you tell the company that you're getting insurance through, if you're going like online, that yes, I have a dog and I would like to have it insured. So I always tell people the two things you want to check are trampolines and dogs, because a lot of people have trampolines and most people have dogs. So you want to make sure those are covered, because those are two things that can cause pretty severe injuries, and you do not want to be personally liable. You want to make sure you have some insurance coverage.
Right. Yeah, I thought it'd be kind of a cool topic to talk about because, like I said, I'm seeing more and more bikers with their dogs. And granted, they're usually small because, you can only carry so big of a dog. But I have seen full-size dogs inside cars at bike shows and stuff. So, yeah, I thought it'd be a good
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, and you look, you want to make sure obviously your dog has all its immunizations, because one of the things that happens is if your dog's not up to date, then you have to put the person that was bit through rabies protocol, and obviously that is not something anyone wants to go through. It's not as bad as it used to be, but still it's a pain and suffering claim that they can make. And we had that case where um, uh, gentleman got bit by a small dog, but it wasn't up to date, so he had to go through the rabies protocol. I mean, that changed the value of the case.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time his little cuts had healed, he still had but I had to get rounds of shots and worry if I was going to have some type of disease that would eventually kill me, and it's a horrific death, as everyone knows. So you have those types of damages too. So as an owner, after insurance, make sure that your dog is all up to date on its protocol. And the other reason is too, like, I started off by saying I love dogs. I would not want a dog to be euthanized, and let the city or state make that decision simply because it wasn't, up to date on its shots. So that would be, another reason to make sure that the dog is up to date on its shots, and that you have that information available. Because if your dog does bite somebody and the police and animal control are informed, they're going to want to quarantine that dog. And if it's a real vicious bite or attack, they're actually going to determine, they're going to have a court hearing on it, whether or not that dog should be put down.
Right.
So, more reason to, make sure that it's up to date on shots, and, obviously, follow all licensing and leash laws. Because if your dog's on a leash and someone's walking by, you can always pull it back and, control it. If the dog's off a leash and that dog decides that it's going to, go after someone, it's a different story. So those are, some tips that, to try to keep, a person protected, besides, insurance. But it's the kind of thing where you just you have to live your life, and dogs are part of it. You just have to do things that protect you just in case something happens. So that's pretty much the dog bites, in a nutshell.
Right. Right. So, oddly enough, this week, my dog, who was laying here actually, has been quiet. Last week, when we were not talking about dogs and dog bites, he was barking. I don't get it.
I met a couple of your dogs.
Yeah. Some of them aren't here anymore, but since the move. But little Mr. Harley is. I don't know if you met Harley or not. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think I did. One of them was a Chiweenie, maybe.
Oh, that was Dexter. Yep, that was Dexter. The hairless Chiweenie. Harley is what they call a muggin, and that is he is half pug and half miniature pinscher. He looks like a baby Rottweiler.
Yep, I remember him. He was cool.
He's my little riding buddy. So sometimes you see him out on the bike.
I think you'd be good with Dexter.
Yeah.
I would just maybe just check your policy just to be 100% sure. But I
Right.
think, I think you're pretty safe with that guy. He's a good boy.
Yeah, all the dogs are pretty good. But some of them have nipped in the past, and so that was pretty good to get a little information on that.
Yeah, just if you ever have a issue with moving and changing of life, just keep in mind dogs are considered property under the law. So
Yeah,
there's no visitation or parenting time with dogs. It's kind of they're looked at as sofas and chairs and
that's just
laundry
weird, but
machines and
I mean,
just
it is what it is.
so, so it sounds like you got one of the good boys anyway.
Yeah, I got Mr. Harley, and we didn't fight too much over the ownership of the pets, so that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I did have a matter years ago where two people they were never married, but they tried to do like a dog visitation agreement,
Really?
and it just wasn't upheld by the courts because the courts just said that's not a realistic thing to do, and they wouldn't entertain it, but they did try to do that.
I would think if they're
So
two adults acting like adults, which I guess is the big loophole there, in those situations, they could have something worked out between themselves. But yeah, maybe the
yeah,
court
what
probably
happened
wouldn't
was
recognize it. But
what happened was is the two quote unquote adults were not acting like adults,
oh,
and
I'm
so
familiar with that situation.
they were not returning the dog per the agreement, and that's what erupted, and they had to go into court, and the judge said this is not even enforceable, so you guys are going to have to figure this out. But yeah, it's dogs that I mean dogs again. I mean, it's they're great.
Well, they become part of the
They are your
family.
best. They are your best friends. So, it's one of those things where you got to figure out how it's gonna work. But yeah, yeah. Well, what else is cooking, Biggie?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I got stuff going on here and there. Of course, we got our big ride July 12th for the Area 24 Special Olympics. I heard a rumor you might be coming up to that.
I am going to participate in that, and I'm looking forward to it. So
Cool.
I will be there, and we'll have to hang out.
Yeah, definitely. Any luck in getting a bike yet? Or I know you were looking last year when you were around.
Yeah, I've been borrowing bikes. I haven't purchased one yet.
You haven't pulled the trigger yet?
I keep trying to tell Dave he needs to and write it off for a business expense, but
Right.
he's not buying into that. He's not buying what I'm selling.
Give him my number. I'll tell him.
Yeah, that's what I need. I need a bike advocate.
There you go.
To help me out with that.
And I'm perfectly good at that.
I know Yeti was going to sell me his bike. Did he ever sell that Harley?
Yeah, he traded in. He got a newer bike. Yeah, Road Glide. Yep.
Cool. That was a nice bike. It was even had the blue color,
right?
Which is the law firm color. So
it might be available up at Miller's.
I tried to sell it. I sent a picture to Eileen and Dave, and I got the hey, that looks nice. That was it.
Yeah. So. Maybe I should talk to him. Maybe I need a new bike. I think they could.
call Uncle Dave.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
Oh man. So all right. So we got that coming up July 12th.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
what do you guys
look forward to that.
What do you guys get going on? I know you're going to be at Bikes at Bricks. I think gave me like 3 events that she was trying to get you guys to.
Yeah. I think I've signed up for a few things coming up, but I like to do the northern Michigan ones if I can. That's kind of my territory up there.
Yeah, I get that. Because you're not that far away. You're up in Traverse City.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, that's where my home is, but obviously working a lot in Southfield area, and I kind of go where the cases take us.
Right.
Like I had one on the west side in the Grand Rapids area recently that we were getting signed up. So yeah, it's kind of like I get I'm like a firefighter in that we have a good case. I put the siren on my car and I go.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
I don't chase the ambulances. I actually feel like I'm the ambulance.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go wherever, and we'll take cases all over the state. I mean, we've had them in the UP, obviously northern Michigan and lower Michigan, southern Michigan, and then west side, east side. So we're everywhere.
Right.
248-900-9000. We'll
motorcycle injury, dog bites, you name it.
Yeah, doing a lot of dog bites. So, obviously, if anyone has any questions about how to protect themselves as dog owners, I'll help you with that. And anyone that gets bit, I can help you with that. So, in the end, it's just about, helping people and getting them compensated. And, I have a lot of people call me and they'll say, look, I'm not trying to get rich off this, but obviously I'm out of pocket. And, I got a scar on my hand, and, we work with that. I mean, I can settle them as long as there's not a big, medical insurance lien. I mean, I can settle them, as low as someone wants to just be done with it and, get some money back for what they paid out. And then, we've pushed it to where someone, wants a lot of money because they can't, they're having nightmares and they can't even go near a dog anymore.
Right.
So, every case is a little bit different. Every client's a little bit different. So, I always tell people I'm like a taxi driver. You tell me where to go and how to get there, and I'll get you there.
Right.
So,
well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you and hanging out with you on the 12th. It's been a while since you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like hanging with you guys. I think the last thing I was at was,
well, you did.
I was at a Gaylord event, and I think that was the last one I was at. So I gotta step up my game. I gotta get to more of these things. So yeah, July 12th, I got that one in the book. So yeah. I'll be out there.
Cool. All right, man. Looking forward to hanging out, catching up. It's been a bit.
All right, Big E.
All right, man. We will talk at you later. Thanks for coming on and filling us in on the dog bite situation.
You got it.
I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone, any questions, anything they want to talk about legal wise or otherwise, 248-900-9000. That's for Jeremy.
There you go. All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, Big E. Thanks, man.
Have a good one, man.
You too.
Bye. There you go, Jeremy Knox with Christensen Law. He's the intake guy. Dog bites, I thought that'd be kind of cool situation to talk about. Like I said, I do see more and more bikers bringing their dogs. Of course, they're all pretty friendly, so I don't really see that being an issue, but kind of a cool little tie-in, I thought. All right, bikers. We are finally in the summer weather. It looks like the weather has been spectacular this week, and I am going to go for a ride. So life is short. Get after it. Thanks for listening to the Mid-Michigan Biker Podcast. Remember, bikers, life is short. Get after it.